If you want to be a better photographer, one of the most important things is to look at other photographers' work and get inspired. I'm not saying that you should copy others, but get influenced by them. 3 photographers that I have been influenced by coming up. Hi there, my name is Peter Forsgård. I am a professional photographer from Helsinki, Finland. And let's get right into the business. Richard Avedon. When I was studying photography way back, my major was portraiture, which you might not guess if you're looking at my channel's content. But yes, it was portraiture. During that time, I was influenced by many portrait photographers. One of them was Joseph Kars because of his really complex lighting that made the image look really simple. Then there was Arnold Newman with his environmental portraits, and one of my favorite photographs of all time is from him, the portrait of Igor Stravinsky. It's a stunning portrait of him. Both Kars and Newman had a very simple way of making photographs, even though the process making that image was most likely quite complex, but the end result was quite a simple portrait. Then there was Richard Avedon, which I liked a lot because of his very simple white backdrop portraiture. The most interesting work from him, for me, is the series of images called The American West, where he had this white backdrop and photographed people in the American West in the early 80s. What's really remarkable of his portraits is that he has, or the model has a very intense eye contact with the camera, so which means that the very a strong eye contact with the viewer too, which makes those portraits really strong, in my opinion. Yes, I know, many of you might think that Richard Avedon was more of a fashion photographer, and yes, he was a very famous fashion photographer. He did some work for Harper's Bazaar, which as chief photographer he was, and then he also provided images to Vogue and other famous fashion magazines. But still, I think his portraiture that he did, the simple white rock portraiture, is the work that influenced my portraiture quite a bit. As I said, influenced. I never really copied his style, but the simplicity, the eye contact and all that stuff was something that I was really into. And also what I like about Avedon's work is that, or Avedon himself, is that he had also another side, a kind of like a journalistic style, even though he's not done really journalistic photography in a way that we think what journalistic photography is. But he made a project called Nothing Personal, which was published right after Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. It was a political statement, and Avedon himself has said that it is his best work ever. And that's what's really interesting, that photographers who have two sides, they do different things, but they still, the work is recognizable. They have a certain kind of style, and that's a really important thing in many ways, that if you want to get better, try to find your own style. How to do that, I might talk about that in another video. Nothing Personal is a book that I do not have, which I've seen the book, but I've never really found any, let's say, affordable copy of it. It's either sold out or very expensive. But that is something that I would really love to have, because I've only seen a few images from that book, and it's a bit different work of Avedon. And you know that I really love photo books, and they give me joy and a lot of influence and boost up my creativity when looking at photographs in a book. For me, looking photographs in a book is the thing. You know, of course, online photographs are nice, but when I see someone's work online, I try to find a book from that photographer, because, you know, books are made by the photographer, and usually the images are in an order that the photographer wants the image to be seen. And that's why it's because it's also a small story when you print a book. There is some kind of a continuity with the image to another one, and that's something that I really like to look. But let's go to the next one. Diana Arbus. I remember seeing her photographs the first time late 70s in a book, and you know, was really interested in her. But then I forgot all about her, and she popped up back to my radar in early 2000. That was a time when I was doing a lot of studio photography, had different kinds of private clients, graduation photographs, weddings, annual portraits, family portraits, even babies. And it was a lot of interesting clients, a lot of interesting times, but also quite boring, to be honest. And when I go back to my archives, I really don't have that many photographs that I photographed for myself during that time when I had that studio. And what it meant is that I was taking kind of like the same photograph over and over again, a simple portrait of a person. And I wanted something more. So I started looking around and then saw Diane Arbus's work. And it influenced me a lot back then. I went a few workshops by Anders Petersen, for example, who is doing a kind of similar type of raw street photography, street portraits, which is really influenced me a lot. And I did that quite a lot back then because I wanted to do something different and wanted a more of a raw approach for my photography. And I even had a couple of exhibitions of those street portraits. One of them is back there, which is a photograph of a guy who has just been in a fight in the main railway station in Helsinki. And, I went to help him and I wanted to also get his photograph. And I wanted him to be anonymous. That's why I took the back of his skull where he had been hit with a stick. It was a very nice situation, but, that image that's back there is influenced also by Anders Petersen, as I said, and also by Diane Arbus about the raw style, and it was totally different from me from these polished studio portraits, and then go to take the same approach without the polish, but getting more raw in the streets, and that was something that I really enjoyed back then, and is something that I might pick up again because. I'm in a kind of same situation. I've been taking a lot of sample photos with different lenses, with different cameras from my channel, and not really photographing for myself. And that's something that I really need to do. And that's one part why I'm making this video, because I really want to do that. And let's see where that leads me to. And there's also an interesting, connection between Richard Avedon and Diane Arbus. They were both, or both of their parents were immigrants from Russia, and both of their parents had a department store around Fifth Avenue, so they were pretty wealthy and had the chance to experiment with their photography quite a bit because the financial background was kind of secured in that way. And they also did, Avedon and Arbus, street photography together. I've never seen any images from those photo walks, if you could call them photo walks. That would be interesting to see what they did together, or did they even photograph anything that is worth showing or to the public. Maybe it was just, having fun with the camera and nothing real special came out. Maybe just having fun together with photography. I don't know. But unfortunately, Diane Arbus committed suicide, I think it was 1972, and actually her fame kind of grew after that, and she's had very big and major exhibitions after that. And yes, I do have a book of her work called Revelation. It was published, I think, early 2000, that book, and it has a lot of stuff about his photography too. It's a very interesting book. And then third one is Anton Corbin. And I think Corbin is kind of like a combination of Arbus and Avedon. It has quite similar vibe in some of the images, especially these images of Bono that Corbin took. There is a vibe from Avedon in a way. The simple lighting and the white background and the edges of the the frame of the film. You can see that what Avedon used quite a bit also in some of his images. Of course, the lighting is a bit different. It's more harsh and more contrasty light because Avedon used very flat lighting and Corbin uses a bit different light, but there is still a vibe. And then the vibe from the rawness of the images comes from Arbus, I think. It's of course the style is a bit different, but the rawness is there. What I really liked about Arbus, Diane Arbus's images. And what's also really interesting about Corbin's photographs is that they looked staged, but they're still kind of like raw and moments. I think he's a master of combining the polished studio type of approach to a street photography raw approach. Corbin started photographing musicians, and he's best known for his work for Depeche Mode and U2. I also like about Corbin's work is some of the portraits are not sharp at all, but he can kind of like take advantage of that. It makes the portrait more interesting because we used to that tack sharp portraiture is the way to go. And of course, it's in some genres of portraiture like corporate portraits and graduation pictures. Of course, that's the way to go in the normal way. But I really like the way or the approach that Corbin has. And that comes from the combining the studio type and the environment and the raw style. And he didn't even care about the unsharpness or the motion blur that some of the images have. They just gives more to it, to the image. And that's something that we should learn about Corbin's work, that it's not about sharpness. It's about the soul of the image. It's about the soul of the person that you're photographing. And that makes, for me, Corbin's work really great. What photographers have influenced your work or the way you work or stuff that you picked up from different photographers? It doesn't have to be a great name in photography. It can be someone in Instagram. It can be someone in your photo club. But is there anybody, and how has those photographers influenced you? This video was influenced by The Photographic Eye, which is one of my favorite YouTube channels at the moment. If you haven't watched his videos, you can go and check out his latest video from there. Great stuff there on that channel about photography and photographers. And if you want to get influenced or have a creative block, you might want to watch that video where I give you 4 different ways of doing exercises to get your creativity boost or to get you a creativity boost. But hey, thanks for watching and bye for now.